Infinite ammo.
Dom's very ecstatic after taking a dump, so this is the
Shut
IS
the
podcast.
fuck up.
This is the IS podcast.
that.
So we're
It's like that episode of Family Guy where Peter finishes potty training. Lois, I did it.
we're talking about a discussion on horror films. So I have my panel here. I'm going to introduce Dom.
Hi, my name is Biodevil Dom, and we're about to talk about some horror films.
Next up is Cryo.
Hey guys.
Next up is Unknown Artist.
Hello, Dean here.
Next up is Captain Chaos.
What's going on, guys?
Hey, Chaos.
Next
Hello.
up is Drobit.
Oh, hello everyone.
Next up is Kaneki.
Listen, if we ain't talking about the Grudge's pussy, I'm out of this call.
Okay. Oh.
Which wait,
More horrifying than anything,
are we
actually,
talking
isn't it?
about Ju-on the Grudge or the American remake?
No, the Japanese, the best tier of pussy, man.
There are so many movies of the Japanese Grudge, it's not even funny.
Well, that could be a video on its own, honestly, if you just talk about exclusively about Japanese horror.
And I think the last person, but not least, is the host, Renegade Operative, which is me. So
No, you're not.
yes, I am the host. Shut up. So we're doing this open mic. We're simply gonna talk off the cuff and simply give our opinions on horror movies from there. So,
There's no doc to
Scripted,
this, right?
what do you say, Dom?
There's no doc to this, is there?
Nope.
No.
We're just shooting
yeah.
shit.
Bullshit.
You mind if I ask the first question?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, so there's obviously a bunch of different horror movies and genres and stuff like that. I want to know between all the different types of horror movies, what is your favorite subgenre of horror?
That was a good one.
Psychological for sure, 100%.
Yeah, I can somewhat agree with that, but I would say with my favorite genre, I honestly would have to say is cosmic horror, and I'm not sure if it's a term a lot of people are familiar with, but it's mainly associated with Lovecraft and stuff like that, and it mainly deals with the idea that there are extraterrestrial beings or beings that are beyond our comprehension that are that are just more powerful than us, and we are insignificant in the greater universe, basically. It's a very terrifying idea, and I've always kind of found that much more disturbing. And I mean, it's the main premise that horror is based on, basically, is the fear of the unknown and our just that we don't understand the things that we don't understand, and it mainly has to deal with all that kind of stuff. So I find that to be scarier than for example, a slasher movie or something like that. Or a haunted house type movie. But then that all depends though on how everything is done. I can generally appreciate if something has a really good atmosphere or something is really good at building tension rather than just throwing a lot of jump scares at you. But I guess my second favorite next to that would just be just generally just Asian horror. We were talking about The Grudge earlier. And I would say a lot of the Asian horror movies I've seen are just, they deal with a lot of really crazy ideas that I don't really see in a lot of Western horror movies. And they also, just like I mentioned earlier, I can appreciate a good atmosphere, and I feel like the Asian horror movies I've seen are just a lot better with just building this sense of atmosphere, dread and just really good atmosphere, as opposed to a lot of these Western horror movies. I feel like a lot of Western horror movies are more concerned with I don't know if I'd say jump scares, but just being really
Jump
intense
scares.
and just trying to basically keep you on the edge of your seat the whole time.
I think
While with Asian horror movies, what I've seen is more a creeping dread. You're not really. It's just more like I mentioned, it's more of an atmospheric, more trying to have a really creepy atmosphere as opposed to just oh shit, there's a thing over there. it's right behind us now. You know, all this stuff that I've
I
seen
think
from
the
American
problem
horror
with like
movies.
Western, like a lot of like even modern Western horror movies is that what they like to do too is like they like to ramp up like movie like music as opposed to just having like a slow build up. Which is why I like tend
Yeah.
to prefer like stuff that came out in like the 80s, 90s, and like even some stuff from like the early 2000s. I just feel like when there's more of a slower build up, it works better than just, hey, let's do a bunch of these jump scares, let's ramp up this music, and it doesn't even sound good. It just sounds like a bunch of fucking noise being shoved up
Sometimes
somebody's
I feel
ass.
like a lack of a soundtrack is a benefit, honestly. Like, I mean, it as opposed to just a constant like building until you get to reach a crescendo, because that's another cue as to when is the jump scare going to happen.
Yeah, Halloween.
then you know
the original Halloween was like great at this. When the police officer like snuck up on Loomis, it was no music, nothing leading up to it. Just he's near the bushes and no noise. You can basically not even see it coming.
You see, these days when it comes to Western horror movies, I think the only horror movies I, take off my hat to is Halloween, because so far, like you said, from the original, no music, they just know how to do it right in terms of horror.
Yeah,
well,
well,
with John Carpenter
sorry
movies,
about that, Chaos.
Oh, sorry, I didn't. Well, I was gonna say with John Carpenter movies in particular, I feel like as opposed to, I wouldn't say there's no music, but it's very minimalistic. That there's not really a lot of like The Thing, for example. The Thing has a very simplistic theme. Like, it's just a repetition of the same like 3 or 4 notes repeating over and over again. It sounds like. I mean, it's not really anything. That's pretty much it. So
Yeah.
I mean, like, the same can be said for a lot of Carpenter's other movies too.
Because I mean, especially like when the camera. I remember there was one part in the '78 Halloween where Linda and her boyfriend were making out on the sofa. The camera pans back and you see Michael just standing there watching. You just hear just a loud noise, just one note. It's like ding. It's like that's it. It's like no build up or anything like that, really.
Yeah, it's ironic because they did that in the 2008 movie as well.
Which I actually like, because I was actually paying tribute to how John did it in the original movie, which I fucking loved.
To hop up on the Japanese horror, I think the reason why they're so different is that Japanese horror tends to dwell into subjects that Americans wouldn't find comfortable, and that aren't really it's not like scary to be fun. It's scary to actually feel dread, like with Ju-on, The Grudge, and The Ring. Oh, and also there was one. I remember there was that one movie about the internet that kind of like makes like a sort of message towards Japanese people that are always just stuck on their phones and the internet.
Pulse. I think you're talking about Pulse.
Yeah, Pulse.
Yeah.
And Ju-on, The Grudge, it's not even like it's a very dark and morbid movie, considering that the more the spirit keeps killing people, the more it spreads, and it seems like there's nothing they can do about it.
All right, so let's talk about the greatest movie of all time with that message: Unfriended Deep Web.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
Can we skip that?
Can we not even acknowledge that movie as a horror movie? Because
the interesting thing too is I don't think Unfriended 2 actually had that many like supernatural elements. It was just like the characters went into the dark web and you see all the crazy
Hold on,
shit.
before we continue, shout out to MTV for making that movie even happen. You fucking pricks.
Yeah, honestly, I do like horror movies that try to challenge certain topics, like with the Babadook. Like, that mostly talks about people who are like suffering from post-mortem.
It's funny that you mentioned Pulse and also the Ju-on, The Grudge, because they both kind of have they kind of end more or less the same way, with everybody kind of being infected like a virus with with the ghost from Ju-on, and then in Pulse with the I don't remember exactly, but I remember it more or less was the same. So it seemed like it dealt with some fairly similar subject matter, just not really exactly
Yeah.
the same.
No, I wanna touch on something because I was trying to give my opinion on like the whole like my favorite genre thing before we started talking about Japanese horror films. My favorite, to be honest, now this is because I saw, Psycho and Halloween. Those two were like pretty much, those genres were one of the first horror film genres I've seen, and that would be mystery slash slasher, because I loved how in Psycho we never knew who the killer was until the end of the movie. Pretty much we never saw a glimpse of his face at all. We just knew it was some crazy broad, but it turns out to
Norman Bates.
Well, I was trying to avoid spoiler, but yeah.
But
So that's
again,
It's an old ass movie. So I mean,
at
time,
this point,
people-
it's like if you haven't.
I mean,
Yeah,
the show
seen
that's
the scenes
based
from
on
it.
Psycho is called The Bates Motel.
yeah, which is where the show takes, where
Yeah.
the movie takes place.
I'm surprised none of you had said that you were like interested in sci-fi horror, because like that's my favorite
Well,
genre.
yeah.
of
Well,
horror.
when I said cosmic horror, that deals a lot with like sci-fi horror. Like movies like Alien and The Thing can be considered cosmic horror. They deal directly with like aliens we don't really understand killing us, and we don't really.
How about Killer Clowns from Outer Space?
Oh, fucking hell, please.
Can we
How
not?
about Leprechaun in the Hood?
I
You ever want to smoke weed with the leprechaun?
See, before we even did this podcast, Ren wanted somebody to acknowledge that movie. I knew he was gonna do it.
Because that's Ren's favorite movie.
I don't know why, like, rappers are in this fucking movie. It's, oh my god.
Hey, Ren, can we talk about...
Is it weird that like every really bad horror movie I can think of, like in a franchise, had like some really like washed up rapper in it?
Yeah, I'm about to talk one right now.
Busta Rhymes.
Halloween, Resurrection,
Chucky, but with Redman.
Yeah,
Dracula
Redman's
3000.
Fucking Chucky, oh my god.
Tell us about Cedar Chucky, Ren.
All I know is that Redman wanted to fuck a white thought with big ass titties. That's it.
Yes, good taste, but that's about it.
Yeah, man, he wanted to get that Tilly action. He wanted to get Tilly's titties.
Alright, so I wanted to go back on the topic that Dom had, like, real quick. So my favorite genre, I'm just gonna keep it simple. Like, number one would be slasher. I'm simple. I just like seeing teenagers get carved up like pumpkins. Number two would be body horror. Because, man, no matter how many times I watch fucking Cabin Fever, I always get disgusted with that movie.
It just makes me really
You
uncomfortable.
just
feel
had
like-
to mention Cabin Fever, and now I'm gonna drink some vodka.
I feel like The Fly is worse in some aspects.
It is,
Well,
especially
The
the scene where
Fly-
he loses his jaw. That was pretty
The
sick.
Fly is more like tragic love story with body horror.
Yeah, but it's still good.
Yeah, I would say one of my favorites is also body horror. It really just depends on how it's done though. Like I don't know. Like I'm gonna be the odd man out because I feel like my least favorite horror genre has to be slashers, and that the main reason for that is because there's so many horror franchises I can think of that are like slasher movies that I feel like have just gotten really stale because they become these long running franchises. Like for example, like Friday the 13th is a prime example. There's too many movies in that franchise, and I just feel like at a certain point, like it's like either do something different or just stop. But of course it's not going to stop because of course they need to make money.
Well, they
aren't they
intended
currently,
to
like, in the legal battle
right
right
now,
now?
it's the lawsuit.
Yeah,
Yeah, right now it's
Wait,
the law.
what are they in a legal battle over?
there's a lawsuit over the Friday 13th license, so that's why
Yeah,
there hasn't been any
Blumhouse is
movies.
trying to take it.
Blumhouse trying to get.
Yeah,
No.
Blumhouse trying to-
Yeah,
Yeah, so that
Blumhouse
means
is
that
trying to
no
get it.
releases has came out recently because of it.
but currently
There,
there's a fight. There's a lawsuit going on. A lawsuit battle going on between Victor Miller and Sean Cunningham
Yeah.
over because apparently Sean wanted to basically take the character away from Victor, not give him any money for it, even though he's the one that came up with the character.
Oof.
Yo, that's
Pretty much the
that's a
gist
shitty
of it.
thing to do.
that's pretty much fun.
And
I
and it's
was
kind
gonna
of
say.
hilarious.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. I was gonna say a little like fun fact. Apparently, according to Victor Miller, right around the time Halloween came out, Sean S. Cunningham and him, they were talking about doing a horror movie together, and Sean just said, "You think we could pull off a copy and paste of Halloween?" That's literally what Sean said to Victor.
Well, it depends on the quality of these movies. Like if it's done well, like it was with the current Halloween, then there's
Friday the
nothing wrong
13th,
with it.
Ooh, Friday the 13th,
Yeah.
the first one was really well done. It did look like I was watching Halloween over again, but it felt like a different character. It did not feel like I was watching Michael. It felt like I was watching someone else, someone that was like pissed off. Just the way that the camera was moving and just the movement and everything like that, it felt like I was watching someone that was like really pissed off. So I actually liked that, to be honest.
But
And the
we-
fact
was
that
gonna,
until you didn't see the killer until the end of the film, which is my
I
personal
did-
favorite.
I did want to take it back just a little bit to what Ren had mentioned. Like, see, I have like the opposite thing where I get really freaked out by body horror. I can't really handle it well. Like, if you were gonna try to ask me to watch like Hostel or what is it, Hellraiser, I don't think I'd be able to handle it very well. And it's weird because like I fucking love The Thing, and you see all these like different like amalgamations come up and like body parts getting split up and shit like that. So I don't know why I just can't handle it as well. So I find that interesting that some people are actually like really into that.
If it gets like super obsessive and detailed, it's really hard to watch sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the main reason that can be scary too is because you're like, oh man, you kind of put yourself in their shoes. You're like, what if that happened to me?
Yeah,
Jesus,
it's not
like,
exactly something you can run away with.
it's like a fate worse than death.
I mean, David Cronenberg did make The Fly somewhat of an allegory to terminal illness.
Yeah, but
there was
but-
also this one, I think it was called Existence. It was like a psychological horror, but it had like some Cronenberg aspects to it.
I've heard of the movie, but I've never seen it. I think it was a trailer on one of the VHSs for Species.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember Species.
Yeah, the alien chick
Okay.
just going around fucking everyone and
What
killing them.
about the? Okay, what have you ever seen like the movie Raw?
No, I'm
No.
not.
Basically, it's about like a vegetarian girl that starts to get a craving for flesh and starts trying to eat people.
The fuck?
Like,
Huh?
yeah, like that's like a different type of horror movie.
This is veganism gone wrong.
I'm not drunk enough for this shit.
But I wanted to
Yes, though.
take it back real quick to like slashers.
I was
like-
gonna say, in regards to Species, I remember just watching one of those movies as a kid, mainly just because I wanted to see the main chick get naked or whatever. But of course, it was on TV.
I forgot
So
her
you're not
name,
gonna
geez.
see much.
Yeah.
I mean, she
I
had
mean,
those tits out, so yeah.
Wasn't Species like about the alien women that were trying to like breed with human?
Yeah, and
males?
then when they did have the sex scene, it was weird because you see like they show her into her alien form, and I'm like, oh, yeah, never
This
mind.
is-
You got baited hard.
You know, why does that remind me of that scene in the first Scream movie when Jamie Kennedy's like, you didn't see Jamie Lee Curtis tits until she went legits.
Oh my god. But I wanted to bring up a point, like, yeah, for slashers, if they do start to run out of ideas, you do get stuff like Jason X, which I thought was just dumb. Like, why is this dude in space? Why is he in Manhattan? Why is he on a boat?
I thought they would just go into self-parody because of Scream.
To me, that doesn't really, like... It tells me that they...
I mean, Scream was kind of trying to make fun of movies like Friday the 13th, so-
Yeah. Because
Scream was like a parody of the whole horror movie genre, especially
Well, more
because
like the slasher genre, to be exact.
Well, yeah, like slasher horror films, because the fact that towards the end, Jamie Kennedy is like, rule number one, you can never have sex, you can't drink or do drugs, and thirdly, you cannot say I'll be right back because you won't be back. Which, to be fair, he's not entirely wrong with all those three rules, because usually the virgin survives in horror films.
Like,
And
Yeah,
the sluts always end up getting killed.
Because between Scream movies, like, how many people were like trying to kill that one chick? 'Cause I
Sydney?
think she was like, yeah, because wasn't she in like more than one?
She was in all of them.
She was in 4. Like she was in all of them.
Yeah, the problem is that it started to get more ridiculous as the sequels progressed.
That's the problem. That's what I was pointing out too. Is like I was gonna go to the example of Nightmare on Elm Street, because I'd mentioned this before. Like Nightmare on Elm Street had a good idea. Like it was an interesting idea how Freddy like kills you in your dreams. So like I feel like it's a unique idea for a slasher movie. I kind of like that idea. I mean, it's like well, if you fall asleep, then you're fucked. So it's like you got to stay awake.
Yeah, and sleeping
but
is just a normal part of
I
our
thought
life.
the first movie was great because of that, but then like of course, as the franchise went on, like just Freddy became more like just a lot less scary. He just
The comedy.
he just became a clown, and I just couldn't take him seriously.
Well, Dream Warriors wasn't bad. At least
No, it wasn't
I don't-
bad, but I feel
scary.
like 4. I think 4 and 5 are probably the worst.
Have you watched
See,
the
that's
final
why-
Nightmare?
I have not watched New Nightmares. So I
Wasn't
It could be
See,
worse.
See, this is why I actually like Final
It's comedy
Nightmare,
right there.
because the fact that Wes actually came back and he went with his original idea with Freddy,
New
make him
Nightmare.
terrifying. Yeah, a new nightmare. Make him terrifying. Make him not funny. Make him just brutal. Make him scary. The fact that he went with the original design of Freddy, just the idea of it, the idea of a horror icon just coming to life, pretty much, and what he does in the films, he can do in real life. Like it's not a dream. He can do whatever he wants to, as if they were actually in the films. I fucking love that. That film is my second favorite in the Nightmare series, besides the first one.
Yeah, I heard there was some fourth wall breaking in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely recommend that movie for you. If you really did enjoy the first film, I recommend that movie.
Well,
I will say, yeah, like I don't mind Freddy like kind of being a jokester at times, but it does kind of take you out of it, like, and make it a little bit less scary when he's like cracking jokes or just kind of trying to be funny.
He
And
did
so-
have like a sense of dark humor in the first film.
Yeah, he kind of cut off his fingers in front of that chick, right?
Yeah,
He was like,
and
"Watch
was
this."
licking- and he licked that girl's face,
Watch
which was
this.
super creepy.
I did kind
could
of like
be
how they
worse.
brought
You
that
could,
back in. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say it could be worse. You could have burnt lion looking Freddy.
No, not the remake, please, God.
You remember how he looked like a burnt lion? Like,
Ugh.
Jesus.
Hold on, are we talking
Also
about
not being
pedo
played by
Freddy?
Robert Englund.
Hold on, you're talking about pedo Freddy, because you know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because then they changed his backstory too.
Yes,
Yeah,
they did.
instead of him killing children, this nigga fucking raped, or no, not raped, molested and killed them. I'm
Well,
like, nigga,
that's what. Well, Wes Craven wanted that to be.
Yeah, to be fair, in the original, that was also the case. He was a pedophile, but of course they don't show any of that. Just mention, yeah, he was.
Well,
I don't think.
Well,
no.
Wes Craven wanted to use that idea, but they couldn't because the studio didn't.
Oh, maybe it
allow
was. I don't know. Might not have been, but I
No.
happen to remember people mentioned like, yeah, that was the intention for his character is the original movies, I guess.
I didn't see that in the original. The intention
Well,
for that.
they
I just
wanted.
know he
Well, Wes
killed-
Craven wanted it, but it got dropped because of the studio.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously also a subject that they probably, I don't know if they'd be able to get away with, but mentioning that.
Yeah.
you know, it's weird. You know, with Nightmare, the last time that it was like, when it was not it was like kind of borderline. It's kind of like borderline comedy and horror, but it was more like horror than anything. Was actually the second Nightmare film, the one that's pretty much homoerotic.
Yeah.
Oh,
like,
that,
no
oh, I
shit.
know. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That film
Yeah,
got
yeah.
riffed on by Dead Meat.
Yeah, it's not a bad film by all means. It's not a bad film, but it's
I'd
just the
say-
writing went everywhere, and plus it was just, for some reason, I don't know why the writer thought this was a good idea because the main actor being gay, but decided to make it homoerotic for some
I
reason.
didn't even know that.
Yeah,
but I did
yeah.
find that weird in the movie with the that one scene where he went like he just randomly like stumbled into a gay bar, and his gym teacher was there, and then there was that scene
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
shower. I was like, what the fuck is
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd say
everybody
just-
on set knew that the guy that played as Jesse was gay. Everyone knew that because by that time I think he was already out.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the writer decided to make the film homoerotic for some reason, and that
I
drew
guess you're
up
trying
a
to
lot of
troll him or something.
controversy.
That's kind of weird. I didn't even know that.
I don't know. I mean, then again,
Maybe
this
I had a
was
thing for
back
him.
in. I highly doubt it. This seemed like a way too much of a mean thing to do.
Hold on, Ren. I'm looking at the live stream right now. I'm seeing the banter of the horror shit. Why isn't the live action Lion King on there?
Oh,
Oh.
you're saying the horror movie? Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say just skip the second and just stick with 1, 3, and New Nightmare.
Uh,
They're at least the best films in the series.
Did anyone else want to go on
Yeah,
Dom's
I watched
question?
1 through 3, and then I.
What was Dom's question?
Well, what was Dom's question?
Which genre you prefer? Did anyone else want to go?
Oh.
Well, I didn't say my part.
Okay.
Probably for me, I guess it's slasher, science fiction, and then Japanese horror. Though slasher is more if I just wanna have fun, or Japanese horror is something if I really want to be scared.
That was a Japanese horror movie I
Yeah,
saw with this woman who was like into acupuncture, and she was needling people. I forgot what the name of the movie is.
Might have been Audition.
Yeah.
That was a pretty controversial film when it came out.
I need to see that.
I haven't seen it in a long time, but I do remember.
I remember Audition was the one with the crazy woman who like kills people.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, in terms of Japanese horror films, there's Ju-on, the original Ring, also A
Ring
Tale
two?
of Two Sisters, and Pulse.
Pulse is really good.
Yeah, just don't watch the American remake.
Yeah, unfortunately, there was like I think the early 2000s, like there was a lot of these really crappy American remakes of Asian horror movies. Like I remember it was like Shudder, One Missed Call. Some were good though. I mean, like obviously like The Ring and The Grudge were actually decent. But I know they also did Pulse too, and that was bad. I think everything else they did was pretty shitty. So.
Yeah, the first Grudge film, it wasn't too bad. Isn't particularly my favorite, but the first one wasn't too bad. But then the second one came out and it was shit. The third one was
with
shit.
The Grudge,
fourth one
I
was
think
shit.
they had the Japanese director come back.
Also, Dom,
the
you were
American.
saying something?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, have you all seen any like, I would say like, really bad horror movies that felt more like comedies?
Of course, the Chucky movies after Part 3.
Well, to be fair, those were intended as comedies.
No, I'm talking about movies that
I don't know.
thought they were like dead ass serious, but they turned out to be like comedies when you watch them. Like I'm thinking like
Texas
7 Days
Chainsaw
to
4.
Live, or trying to think of another one.
Oh, they made Leatherface gay. That's not coming.
Well, it's funny to watch just because you see Matthew McConaughey going ham.
McConaughey?
McConaughey.
It's just something I caught. I was like,
What's next? They're gonna make a Leatherface movie that it's gonna announce his pronouns, like he, she, and all that shit.
no.
That's crazy.
Uh,
I can't think of one at the moment.
me neither.
I have no idea. I can think of movies that, well, not what that turned out to be comedies, but I can think of movies that like horror movies that I've seen that had like pretty crazy twists that I didn't see coming, but not that turned out to be comedies. I can't really think of one of those.
I guess one way to answer this question would be like the horror movies that always have those serious moments, but the tropes keep happening all the time. Person fall over. Let's see, black guy dies first. Stoners get killed. People have sex. They get chopped up.
People doing fucking Superman jumps off of stairways in an old ass mansion.
Oh God!
I'm telling you, you guys need to watch 7 Days to Live. It is the funniest fucking horror movie. Like, yeah, Kaneki, you know.
Yeah, I know.
You know. So.
Yeah, Virgin Lives. It's like it's so many tropes, dude. That is like so funny to laugh at.
I didn't actually get defeated.
Like my nigga was a Superman for a moment. All right.
What about like claustrophobic horror? Like I was mentioning Ren should watch The Descent. I don't know if you got a chance to watch it before we did the podcast or not. But...
No, I didn't. The thing that I watched before this was Halloween 2018, which was fucking great.
Y'all see The Shining? Mm-hmm. That was good.
Hey. Yeah. I don't know who hasn't seen The Shining at this point.
John.
I'm excited for Doctor Sleep. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm excited for Doctor Sleep. Isn't that like a sequel to Shining?
Yeah, it takes place like 30 or so years after.
I didn't see that shit, man.
Yeah.
My mom is also a fan of The Shining.
I think it's going to take place in the same. It's going to take place in the same universe as like The Shining did. So like it'll have like flashback scenes to The Shining. Exactly. The main issue, not main issue. The main thing to take away from that is basically that even though this is going to be a continuation to The Shining, this one's going to have more book elements. This is probably going to be more faithful to the novel while also being faithful to The Shining.
I was going to mention that. Okay, so I have to point this out. I mean, the original Shining, while it was a great movie, there were a lot of things that the book had that the movie didn't, and the ending is a really big thing that the book is a really big difference between the book and the movie, and especially with I'll go ahead and spoil it because it's something you'll see if you look at the cast listing for Doctor Sleep. Dick Halloran, the black guy in the movie, he dies. In the book, he lives. So he's supposedly going to be in Doctor Sleep. So that's people are, I think, going to be confused by that. He wasn't supposed to die in the at least not in the original book. So I guess if they need to follow the book for certain plot points in Doctor Sleep, so I guess that's why he's still there. So
yeah, I didn't get that because in the book the hotel exploded pretty much because of the boiler.
Yeah,
but in the movie it didn't, and actually that's why Stephen King and Stanley Kubrick, they butted heads quite frequently because Stephen was brought on for the movie obviously because it's his book, his idea and everything like that, but Stanley, I guess he was just, I mean, I'm not gonna say Stephen doesn't have an ego. He everyone has an ego, whether they like it or not. Everyone has an ego.
Yeah, I feel like both Stanley and Stephen King have an ego.
But I think the way Stanley went through it, it was like, no, your book was shit. I'm going to do it my way. You're just here just to oversee everything. And in my opinion, if you're going to act like that towards like the author and not show any like respect or anything like that, maybe you really shouldn't be working on an adaptation like that if you're not gonna really show.
Well, as a counterpoint
respect.
to that, I mean, you literally have a Stephen King adaptation that Stephen King worked on himself. That's literally about machines coming to life.
Okay, here's the thing: is like Stephen King, he's better at writing books. He's not so good at like writing screenplay and like writing for movies and television. for the most part. I think there actually has been some things he's worked on that actually have been decent, but for the most part, he's not been that good at it. I think, Stanley Kubrick is a great director, and I mean, he really deserves his place in having made some classic movies. But does he probably have like a huge, massive ego? Yeah. He probably wasn't the best person in terms of personality and just a person in general. But as a director and he was great. So, I think he's, but in terms of adaptation, like, this is my opinion on The Shining. It was a great movie, but it wasn't a great adaptation. Like, Stanley Kubrick made it his own thing, and it's one of the few, like, the very rare exceptions where, like, a movie can stand, that came from a book, can, like, stand on its own as its own thing, and it wasn't really, like, a faithful adaptation of the book. Do I wish it were a faithful adaptation? Yeah, but I think it was fine the way it was. I would, however, like someday for there to be some sort of maybe a remake, because I do think it does deserve one, not because the original was bad, but because it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a faithful adaptation of the book. And, while I do think people still should read the book, it would be kind of interesting to see some of the plot elements and some of the things in the book that were not brought over in the original movie to actually like show up in the on the screen.
I will say this though, kind of to counter what you said about Stanley as a director, and then Steven directing and writing and everything like that. Stanley has more films under his belt than Stephen King did.
Yeah.
So Stanley had more like experience and everything like that. And
yeah, which is the point I was trying to get at. Like he knows what he's doing in that regard. Stephen King isn't as experienced, and he's not. He for the most part, I don't think. And not that I would say he doesn't know what he's talking about, but I don't think he since he's not that as experienced as Stanley, he's not really. I think Stanley might be a little bit annoyed by him, maybe like trying to tell him what he should do with his movie. That's the only thing. That's the only excuse maybe I could make for Stanley.
Which is
maybe
kind of
acting
weird,
a bit dickish, but
which is kind of weird considering how Shining was made in 1980, and when Steven decided to direct, it was 86, 6 years after The Shining. I mean, if that's the case, then in my opinion, Stanley kind of did act a little dickish, and apparently the way he treated, what's that name? What's her name?
Shelley Duvall.
Yeah, the way he apparently treated, her and everything like that, basically fucking her up, from what I heard. Yeah, if I was an actor during that time,
he was verbally abusive to the actress.
Huh.
Oh damn.
Well, I guess in a way it was preparing her for the role.
You could say that was necessary for them to get it done, but
if that's true, then wow, it's kind of.
You could also say that it's kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
But
if you that's a whole nother like subject in on itself, because I mean, like, you could look at Kubrick and there's a lot of stories about him offset that really say a lot about him as a person.
It's crazy how he wanted to do like 100 takes of one scene. Those actors must have been exhausted, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, Kubrick, I don't know too much about him as a person, but I know like
he's a perfectionist.
He's a perfectionist.
Yeah. I mean, hey,
I can imagine Jack Nicholson.
I think it pays off in the end. His movies are classics, so I mean,
definitely, yeah.
There's a method to the madness, I suppose.
But Dom, you wanted to bring up another topic?
Oh no, I was just interjecting.
I kind of wanted to bring up your favorite horror movie icons. Like, does anyone have any?
Ooh.
Does anyone have what?
Favorite horror movie icons? Like top 3.
Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Maybe Freddy. I would say Freddy.
I'll say Michael, Jason, and Norman Bates.
I gotta think on this one. Fucking.
Me is Michael, Jason, and I like The Grudge, but I wouldn't say The Grudge. I was more like into Blade from the Puppet Master, the first one.
Because I would say Freddy, but I don't know. I mean, we kind of already ended up finding out who, Freddy was almost from the get-go, just a little bit. I don't know. I just love the mystery behind, Jason, Michael, and, Norman Bates.
Well,
I mean,
you find out in the last movie that his dad was Alice Cooper. Remember that?
Yeah.
See, that's why. I mean, that's why that's why I sometimes get into like not heated arguments with people, but when people tell me, "Oh, Jason has always been sort of supernatural," I fight back and I'm like, "No,
No, that happened later on
in Jason Lives.
Jason Lives, yeah. So I would say Jason. I'm trying to think of some monsters here.
Yeah, I was thinking on it. I was gonna say, even though it's not really, you don't really see a lot of good movies of this thing. Definitely, at least in literature, in video games, you see a lot of. Cthulhu is a given to me because it's like this thing can bring about the end of the world. So that's
What about
that's
zombies as well?
All hail Cthulhu.
Yeah, zombies. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of, I think, Lovecraft elder gods that definitely would be up there because of all the shit that could happen if they decide they want to destroy the world. Then it's over.
I think Pinhead is another one for me. I'm surprised nobody bought him up.
Oh yeah, damn! I didn't think of Pinhead. Yeah, I would say Pinhead
because he only has one good movie.
Oh yeah, but he's memorable.
No, I thought the second one was okay. The problem with the second one started to get kind of cheesy too, though. I mean, with the Cenobite doctor, that was when I was like, I don't know where this is going.
What?
I would say, like, I'm surprised nobody brought this one up. I actually really enjoy looking at the Xenomorphs from the Alien franchise.
I just wasn't really okay. Never mind. Scrap what I said.
Where the movies go post Aliens, but the Xenomorph is definitely something where it's kind of similar to like Cthulhu, how Chaos said, where it's like, the Xenomorph is great in like the first two movies, and then like also in like anything related to like
I thought you were gonna say it's similar because when they go to Earth, then everybody's pretty much fucked.
Oh well, yeah. If we're talking Earth Wars before it got wrecked,
they do mention. Well, they mentioned that in the first Alien I think it was the first one. They mentioned if they were to get to Earth, then nobody would survive or something. But yeah, like you do see that in the comics. Like they actually show what happens when the aliens do go to Earth.
Yeah, before it was retconned.
I will always remember
That's the problem I have with the comics.
line.
There's no real like canon continuity to it really.
With the first Alien movie, one of my favorite lines from the film was from Parker. What's his name? I think his name's Yafet.
Also, Cry, I'll hold that thought. Someone said the tall man is an underrated horror character, and Pinhead is good, but watch Nightbreed.
Oh, Nightbreed's a good movie. That's a Clive Barker movie too.
Nightbreed? I need to see that.
It's about this guy that goes to this secret underground city with a bunch of monsters, and he becomes one of them. It's a pretty different concept for a horror movie. It's pretty good actually. Like it's different. I liked it. It's a movie where the humans are kind of the bad guys in a way.
The tall man. Why is that movie? Wasn't that like sort of? Why did it remind me of? I think that movie kind of gave me like Slender Man vibes because of how.
What's the tall man? I don't know.
I've never seen that
villain
either.
of Phantasm.
Oh, okay.
The guy from Phantasm. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know who that is. I haven't
They
seen
had-
that movie. I
They
need to
had
see it.
5 movies, with the 5th one recently coming out. Though sadly, his actor did pass away a couple years ago.
Well, there is a movie that's just called The Tall Man with Jessica Biel.
Oh man, yeah, I see the
I
Phantasm
haven't
movies
heard
coming up.
Jessica Biel's name in years.
Me neither. Fuck, I don't even remember the last thing she was
I know
in.
one of the only reasons I like, well, it was a genuinely good remake, but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think it was the 2003 one. It's
Okay.
just because you see her in like shorts or something, and I was like,
That's the one with
Arlie
like
Ermey.
Arlie Ermey, right?
Hold on. I may be the only person that brings this movie up, but have you all ever seen Wishmaster?
I've heard of
I-
Wishmaster.
yeah, I've heard
I've
of it.
heard of it.
I've
had
seen
one.
it. I liked it.
Like,
Yeah,
I don't-
it's basically a movie which takes your wishes very literally.
Which I liked at first, but they ruined
Yeah, the
it.
first two films were fine, but then the third
Yeah.
one came and the fourth one came. They were shit. Basically,
It
long
was the
story
first one.
short, there's this demon pretty much called the Jinn, who grants you a wish, but it will turn very sour. So you could say, for example, kind of like the monkey's paw, kind of. It's like that, where you could say, "Oh, I wish I was rich," and you all of a sudden, you'll find out, you get a report that your mother died in a plane crash, and you got sent like thousands of dollars, millions of dollars from like life insurance or some shit, and like
Yeah.
that. Or you could say, "Oh, I wish I was beautiful forever," and you would just turn into a mannequin. That was actually one of the things in the film, actually.
All right, let's talk about another horror movie that is Monday Night Raw.
Oh,
That's
actually,
still a joke.
real quick, I wanted to finish my thought off before Rin mentioned that someone said something about the tall man. There's this one line that Yafet Koto said in the first Alien movie, which is actually one of my favorite. Is I think he said something like, "You gotta admit, it's got a wonderful defense mechanism." And it was when they were trying to cut the face hugger off of Kane's face, and it spat out acid blood. And that's one of my favorite moments in that movie, actually.
I also said Pennywise
with
and
that teeth.
I said Pennywise and Predator in the chat. Predator is a good looking design as well, but
I didn't find them as a horror though.
Predator.
well, after a certain point, it's like you can kind of see the stalking element of the first Predator.
Yeah, I can see that.
I would say the
but
first two maybe, but then after that.
After
it's
that, it's like
the first
eh.
one was the best one.
Until Predators came out. I liked Predators, to be honest.
Predators
At
was
le-
fine because it was closer to the first one. And
Yeah.
just that when you had the Predator, where they literally used autism as a reason.
The problem with the Predator is that
gouge
it
you a
went in,
language. So I'm,
the problem
I'm
with the
saying.
Predator is that it went into self-parody and had none of what made Predator good.
Dude, this kid blew up
And-
like somebody's house. I'm like, what the fuck?
I'm just saying.
I
Say what you will about Predators, right? It's not as bad as The Predator, where they had to use autism to diffuse or learn the Yautja language. Fuck outta
and
here with that.
actually, let me add into that a little bit. The thing I liked about Predators was the fact that they fucking actually mentioned the first Predator movie. They actually mentioned that. I fucking loved how Predators actually tied in a little bit to the first Predator movie.
Well, in the original script for Predators, they wanted to get Arnold to come at the very end of the movie so that he'll show up, and they were going to have Dutch show up at the very end, and as one of the Predators.
I was busy being a Dominator. What do you want from me?
he was gonna be wearing one of the Predator masks, and he would take it off and be revealed that it was Dutch, and you know he would basically more or less say good job to Adrian Brody's character for what he did in the movie, and it basically would show us what happened to Dutch after the first movie, which I feel like a lot of people had questions about after years since the first movie. So it would be interesting to have seen that, but unfortunately Arnold was not available to do that. So, but of course, as we know, he is available to do Terminator: Dark Fate, which is going to be a dumpster fire. I'm just going to say it right now, it's going to be a dumpster fire.
I tell you, what can I do? They shoved my thing in my face. I cannot help it.
I'm surprised no one brought up Saw. Now that's a horror.
Saw the first 3 movies good, and afterwards,
I think
I thought you meant like horror movie icons or something in terms of Jigsaw, because I feel
see
like
him as a horror icon.
the problem is that as the sequels progress, they start to keep going.
his
back
plan
in time.
becomes very convoluted into why he brings them there, and like how he was able to evade being captured.
and then you have the copycats, which are not as
Saw 2
impactful.
started that trend.
Yeah.
The most ridiculous being that this guy was also working with Jigsaw the entire time.
By the way, I was going to mention, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie that actually inspired, that Saw was inspired by. It's called Cube.
Never heard of it.
Yeah,
I've heard of Cube.
Wait, did you say?
Yeah,
did you
there's
say?
like
Cube? Yeah,
Three movies,
Cube.
I think, or 3 or 4 movies in that.
Yeah, don't watch the other ones. The first one's the only good one as far as I know.
Yeah,
basically-
and actually,
I'll explain. I'll explain the plot briefly. Like, basically, everybody's trapped in this weird cube structure, and they're just basically a group of strangers, and they're separated by these different rooms that are also shaped like cubes, that have this cube structure to it, and each room has a trap, and I'm pretty sure most people would die in this scenario too, because you want me to say why? It's because the rooms that have traps in them, you have to actually figure out where you need to go to escape from the structure, with a mathematical formula. And the rooms that have traps in them, I think, are like, you have to solve like this equation to figure out which room has a trap. It's really kind of like complicated, and I'm like, I would die in this scenario, because there's of course, conveniently, there's one chick who is like really good at math, and like everybody else, nobody else knows like what to do. So, but yeah, it's a really good fucking movie. Like, it's not quite as, obviously not nearly as graphic as Saw. It can be really graphic at times, but it's not like, it doesn't like go into like some torture porn territory like Saw can at times. It's more just like, if you fuck up, you're going to die horribly. That's basically the worst it can get, but it's a good movie. Anyway, tangent there.
Brother, we're not bringing him up.
Somebody-
What are you talking about?
Somebody brought up zombies earlier. I've seen quite a bit of zombie movies in my day, like Night of the Living Dead and all the George A. Romero types of Living Dead movies and stuff like that. How many of you have actually watched the Return of the Living Dead series?
I
I've
haven't.
seen the first one.
I've seen Day of the Dead.
Return of the Living Dead series is basically like a parody on George A. Romero's work. And they actually, in the first one, they reference Night of the Living Dead quite a bit. So, I don't know. I always thought that stuff was kind of funny up until a certain point, because then they kind of went too far with it. And by too far, I mean like they just kept beating a dead horse. But then I also like the more like serious stuff, like I Am Legend, and although I Am Legend was more so like vampirism.
Vampires.
So.
Yeah. You guys see that Train to Busan?
I
No,
want to
I've
see
seen it
that.
before.
It looks like a good movie.
28
Right.
days later, the birth of the running zombie.
Wait, Ren, why you want to bring us, brought up Tales from the Crypt?
Because it was actually fun when I watched it.
It was? I thought the horror part was the shitty puns.
Oh, you mean the Crypt Keeper?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's ridiculous, but some of the scenarios were interesting.
Have you guys seen Creep Show?
I did.
Yeah,
okay.
apparently there is a. I think there's a new Creep Show series, but it's exclusive to Shudder, unfortunately.
Wasn't it like a movie of this where a guy was like buried in sand or something?
Yeah, you had Leslie Nielsen in it.
Yeah, he was in it, and then he just died by being on the beach.
So, like, Leslie Nielsen's surprisingly good for a horror actor.
Now, Chaos, I was gonna add something to this when you were talking about the cube, before Discord disconnected me. But I remember that in the cube, they had help from someone who wasn't he autistic?
Yeah,
And
The,
he could rapidly figure out numbers.
it's Hollywood autism, where like anybody who's autistic is a genius. Yeah, he's really like he's a genius. And he can't communicate well at all. So
Yeah, because I remember that in each room, it's not the same. Like, one's like has a heat sensor. It's like heat sensor activated. I think one's like a laser activated or anything like that, or like pressure plate or anything like that. And I know that there was two indie games that I actually like, Half Dead and Half Dead 2, that actually was inspired by the Cube, which I actually love those games, especially the second game. I do recommend those games because it is fun and it is co-op, so that makes it even more fun.
yeah, well, yeah, everybody should go see Cube. So, I demand it.
There, best game in the chat, Intelligent Cube.
Intelligent Cube.
Intelligent Cube.
I think I remember hearing about that game.
Derek told me to get that. Like, download the ROM for it.
And there was also another funny situation called, it was another funny movie actually called Tales of the Dark Side, where some man fucked a demon and it killed him. And and he basically had like demon kids.
Oh, wasn't Tales from the Dark Side like a horror show or something?
I think it was.
I think that was. Yeah, I remember seeing some of it on Sci-Fi.
You know what? I'm glad you brought something like that up because everyone in here should watch Tales from the Hood right now. I mean,
shit! You know what?
Even though it's a comedy, even though it's a comedy, there are some pretty fucked up things towards the end of the movies.
Well, speaking of which, have you guys seen Candyman?
Oh, I seen it.
I have.
I saw that recently, like a little while ago. It's a good fucking movie. Like, but I heard the sequels were trash, so I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna watch.
I have not watched Candyman, but I have a funny story about
it.
Actually.
The original story was done by Clive Barker, so you know it's good.
Yeah, so I've not watched Candyman, but I do have a funny story about that. When I was young and when my mom was still engaged and stuff, my stepsister at the time was watching that with her friend, and we had our computer downstairs in our entertainment room, so I was just there doing some homework or whatever, and every time there was a fucking jump scare or whatever on that movie, I wasn't even directly looking at that, and I would just fucking jump, and I think I was maybe 11 or 12, so I find that kind of funny. I might consider checking that movie out now as an adult and might find that
the guy who plays the Candyman is like it's basically, I would say, the equivalent of Doug Bradley playing as Pinhead. He was really good in that role. Like, he's really intimidating.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta tell you guys something. Oh, I'm actually excited about the new Candyman film because apparently Tony Todd is actually coming back. And the way it looks.
Well, Tony Todd was in the sequels too. So.
Well, no. Here's the thing, though. People were concerned that this was going to be an actual, straight up, reboot, remake, to the point where they were going to cast a different Candyman. But the way it looks now, this is just my theory. They have two Candymen right now. My theory is this guy, he's a copycat. He got obsessed with Candyman. So he decided, okay, I'm going to copy him. But later in the film, the OG Candyman ends up killing him because of him smearing his image, pretty much putting a stain on his memory and his name. And of course, you know, Candyman, he don't like that. Tony Todd, he don't like that.
Who's making?
Oh, sorry. Well, I was gonna say the idea I had was that they were just gonna make a sequel to the first one and ignore the sequels.
I think that's what they're gonna do.
Who's making the movie?
I don't like that though, because the first movie had a fairly conclusive ending, and the reason he was there, actually, you know, like one of the twists ended up being it had to do with the main character and who she really was. So I don't really know how sequels could work.
Supposedly, who's making it
because
is...
the way that the first movie ended too, I will say the Candyman is not who he used to be. Let's just put it that way.
What you said, Ren?
Supposedly, who's making it is Jordan Peele.
Yeah, that's the other reason.
I'm not watching that.
Turn left right now, everyone.
You good? You good, cry.
What's wrong with Jordan Peele?
The new Twilight. Just
basically-
watch the new Twilight Zone. It's terrible.
Basically, all you need to know about Jordan Peele is that he's a good comedian, and he should stay in his fucking lane. That's
Pretty much.
basically what you need to know about him.
Pretty much.
I mean, with the Twilight Zone, it's such an iconic series that remaking it is kind of hard to follow up,
Well,
at least without updating it.
I mean, like I said, Jordan Peele is a good comedian, but he needs to stay in his fucking lane and stop working on horror shit. Cause
Well,
it's not his expertise.
to be honest, that's kind of a stretch. Because take a look at Danny McBride. He helped make Halloween 2018. That's kind of a little bit of a stretch saying
but
that.
What else did he do?
He also
Jordan Peele or
Jordan Peele?
Danny McBride?
Ren.
Danny McBride. What else did he do?
right?
Oh, okay.
He also did what was that movie? I forgot.
No idea.
Let me pull up his IMDb.
Oh yeah, he was in the last.
He did the
Alien
Pineapple Express, or he was in the Pineapple Express.
I don't-
Isn't that the movie with fucking Seth Rogen?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Franco.
James
James
Franco.
Franco.
Where they get high.
Which movie?
Pineapple Express.
He directed 3 movies. He was an actor in 51 movies.
He was also involved in Alien Covenant.
Oh.
Well, he was a good actor in that. It's just the movie isn't that good.
So wait. So are you saying he's in there as an actor? Or is he in there as like
Actor.
someone who has a writing credit?
He's an actor.
Yeah, he
I
starred in the movie.
I've never really heard of him until now. So.
Oh,
Me
you know,
neither.
there was a movie I forgot to bring up, but it just slipped out of my mind. Oh, have y'all seen the horror movie Jack Frost?
Yes.
Is that the one with the
That's-
killer
it's just-
snowman?
It's basically
Yeah.
just a shittier
Yeah.
version of Child's Play,
That's comedy.
which was
though,
actually
right there.
something I was gonna bring up with Child's Play.
Go ahead.
So, So what do you think about the series, at least in terms of all the films?
The original first 3 are, I think they're all good movies. They have a focus. Obviously the quality does drop off a bit for 3, but it's still watchable. And then when they go into, you know, Joke Town, Scream Fest with like Bride and Seed is just awful, man. I can't watch that movie.
You know, I have a guilty pleasure sometimes with puppet movies. You know, when puppets killing humans.
Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing I will say about Bride, though. Bride of Chucky wasn't. It wasn't
bad, but it
But
is.
it also wasn't good. It had a good mixture between the comedy. It didn't go like too over the top like C did, because I did like how the fight, the argument between Chucky and Tiff going, Martha Stewart could kiss my shiny plastic butt.
It's not bad, but it is definitely like, it takes elements of Scream. There's no denying that.
Yeah.
Have you seen the reboot yet?
For what?
Chucky.
I was
Child's Play.
watching a little bit of it, and there's some things that I like, and then there's some things that are like.
What did you think about Mark Hamill's Chucky?
He's okay, but he's not memorable as Brad Dourif.
I don't know why they were. Like, here's the thing. Like, it was an okay movie in my opinion, but it doesn't need to exist. Like, I don't know why it exists because we're gonna have another like. Are we gonna have like a TV series of Chucky?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, we are.
It's on Sci-Fi. And
they're
I'm
acting
not
like
looking
this is a film franchise that hasn't been around in years when they're still making movies and like, TV shows.
Here's what I'll say. I've seen the reboot fully, but here's what I'll say. I'll say it's not a bad movie, but the identity of it it's an issue. Like, it has problems.
The Chucky face is terrible, dude. Like, it's so awful. I can't stand it.
The doll.
Like if they're planning to make a sequel for whatever reason, well, actually no, they can't, right? They can't make sequels.
I don't know. Like,
I did not hear that at all. I heard that they actually can make, sequels of it because it's has nothing to do with Don Mancini's Chucky at all.
I just hope the sequel will at least try to fix the identity issue the first one had.
They need to fix the doll. The doll was the main issue I had. I love the kills in the film. I love the idea of a Chucky doll being able to take control, a modern Chucky being able to take control of anything electronic, going from computers, going from a car, going from a TV, drones.
He's basically
I fucking
Skynet.
love that. I fucking love that. That actually terrified me when I was in the theater because I'm like, yeah, these are kind of toys nowadays. These kind of are toys nowadays. Things are improving.
it might be weird, but
nowadays.
honestly, I didn't have much of a problem with the voodoo stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I didn't really mind that either. It's like.
Yeah, I didn't mind that either. I
You're
actually
talking about a toy that kills people. I don't think it's too. I mean, there's not really any way you could make that seem more grounded and realistic. I mean,
and plus, who could forget? Just the classic, build up of the music, and then you just hear Chucky off in the distance. A day do a dambala. Who couldn't?
Yeah, that
Who doesn't
stuff is
love that?
really core to the character. So to not sort of have that is kind of weird.
Well, I mean, in this case, they couldn't use it because that was
Rights issue.
copyrighted. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
lame.
it's weird because they Universal has the rights to the characters in the first film, but they just can't use anything beyond the sequels. Well, beyond
no, that wasn't Universal. That was MGM.
I thought it was Universal.
No, MGM. MGM's the one that did the remake, reboot. I don't know.
It's a reboot at this point.
Well, it can use the characters from the first.
Well, a
film.
reimagining. I'll just say reimagining, reboot. Modern Chucky. I'll just call it modern.
Because the one thing that turned me off from the reboot was the fact that he was a robot and not an actual toy. which I did give it a chance. I did not mind the concept, but I feel like they executed that horribly. Like, it was pretty obvious.
Yeah, someone on my timeline is ranting about titty milk monsters. Yeah. That's fucking funny.
Like, they did not hide the fact of what that that robot can do.
I didn't mind the idea of a robotic toy. What I did mind was the fact that this did not look like the Chucky that we knew, not even in the slightest. It just looked like someone just took a shovel to someone's face. I hated how the doll looked. I hated how the doll looked, but I did kind of like how the doll was kind of getting smarter and smarter and smarter as the movie progressed. I love the whole idea of how he was trying to use Andy's feelings about him against him in an attempt to, kill him and everything like that. Like singing that stupid song, "You Are My Buddy," like that song, just over and over again, just to lure him into, death. I thought that was actually pretty cool. I thought that was pretty neat, but just the way the doll looked, that was just the main thing. That was just my concern for it.
I have a question. So,
Yeah.
favorite kill, least favorite
Hey.
kill, thoughts?
Favorite kills.
You mean for Child's Play?
No, for like any horror movie, really.
You know,
But that's really hard considering there's a lot.
Yeah, that's
my favorite kills. Probably my favorite kills has to do with any kills Jason does in his like Friday the 13th series because.
Well, I
Whenever
like that.
he-
Like,
Go ahead.
well, no, you go.
No, I like whenever he gets like sequels, I just feel like he improves on his killing. Like for example, the body bag. I didn't see Jason would be able to do that
the
with such enormous strength.
the cryo
Well-
face freeze smash was fucking
Yeah,
amazing.
That was good.
The only shame about
Even
the
though that
kills
movie
is that.
sucks.
That movie sucks, but that kill is great.
But he
And-
keeps improving on his killing.
Well, you
Yeah.
also get to see Uber Jason, which is actually kind of funny.
I didn't. One thing I will say out of Jason X, I actually loved the way Uber Jason looked. I didn't mind the way he looked.
It's just Jason on steroids. Like he's been on a steroid bender for the past 24 hours.
I can't lie.
And
They did
and
have the best Jason.
I liked his eye. I liked how his eyes were different too. How now they were like bloodshot red
What was his
now.
name?
As for bad kills, can we abolish like any fucking kill off screen? I hate that shit. Unless it's being done for like tension's sake. I hate
Well,
off screen deaths
Most of
where
the
you
time,
see
it's
it.
just for budget.
I
like
don't
those-
like it.
I would
Well,
say
What about they were?
I don't like it when it's like
Just out of nowhere, dude.
you know like it's I would say I don't like it when it's like well into the movie and they only like imply that it happened. Like that makes sense when they're trying to build up the the monster or the villain or whatever, right? But like once you're like well into the movie and already into like the third act, like yeah, cut that shit out.
Yeah, I
Right,
kind of
what
want
if
to
they
see the
were-
gore by that point.
What if they were part of the deleted scene on the DVD?
I'm gonna say the same thing. It should have been in the movie.
We're talking about all these movies, but you know what the most hype movie coming out right now is?
What's
Fucking
that?
Rise of Skywalker. Trailer just dropped.
Oh, you
The
mean a
final
legit
trailer.
horror
I'm
movie?
so excited, guys. You guys excited?
That
No,
is
I've
definitely
got my Soylent right next to me.
that's
yeah,
definitely the
you know-
version.
Yeah, you know who else is excited?
Oh,
My toilet right across the room, so I can just take a shit on that movie.
yeah, go use it.
Yeah, give Disney while you're at it.
I've never had someone defecate on the podcast before, so that would be a first.
Jesus.
No, don't make that a first. Do not make that a first.
Don't make it a
Just,
first.
could you just also, you guys are just in the middle of talking about horror shit, and then all of a sudden and then I just suddenly just say, "I'm releasing the demon."
Oh fuck, man! There's Exorcist.
what?
They didn't even talk about that yet.
No one ever talked about the Blair Witch Project either.
I love Blair
Some
Witch.
of these movies didn't even cross my mind. I don't know why.
Now,
Yeah, Blair Witch Project. Yeah,
That was the
actually,
first
I
one.
can expand on that topic. What is everyone's thoughts on the found footage genre?
Could be really
Well-
good if done right. If it's done really poorly, then it's trash.
Yeah, like the Blair Witch Project, with that genre, that's how you're supposed to do.
I don't think we needed like 8 paranormal activities. I'm like,
Oh, Paranormal Activity. I feel like is the one that really killed it for me.
Pretty much.
Blair Witch was a movie that like the found footage. I think there was one other found footage movie that came out before that, but Blair Witch was the movie that kind of like kicked off that.
The last broadcast.
no,
Oh, hold on a second,
I think
Chaos.
so.
What are you talking about, Taurus? Get that ass, man. You ain't no Star Wars hater.
But
Time
yeah,
out.
no.
But yeah, Chaos, the movie you were talking about was The Last Broadcast,
Yeah, I think that might be it.
which was about them going into the woods to find
Wasn't it about the Jersey Devil? Yeah, the Jersey
and
Devil.
all the other members are killed, and the only survivor is tried, is accused of killing them. Of course, they look through the footage and try to find the truth.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like. Well, speaking of the Blair Witch Project, that sounds a lot like the second movie, because the plot for that was that it wasn't really a found footage movie, but
We don't talk about
that
it.
movie was
It doesn't exist.
I mean,
one of
I've
those
heard
that
the
doesn't
director's
exist, it
cut
never
a
happened.
lot better.
Are we talking about Blair Witch 2?
Yeah. Well, okay. I'll say why that movie sucked, and then the main reason is because of studio interference. They wanted the director to make a movie he didn't originally want to make, and it ended up turning out as a piece of shit. Like it was a terrible movie because it was a lot of the bad decisions that were made in that movie were because of the studio.
Yeah, honestly, found footage was cool at first, and then they got burned out really fast because then they kept making shitty ones.
I mean, it's still there are still movies in that genre, but it's just that there aren't that many good movies in the genre. You really have to look for some decent found footage movies.
Like there's VHS and the last.
Yeah, VHS I think is a really good example of a great found footage movie, except for the third one. Don't watch that one.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, I think at one point they actually wanted Friday the 13th to be a found footage movie, but thank God that got scrapped.
That would have been weird. No.
That would have been horrible.
Yeah, imagine one of them finds Jason and then the camera just starts shaking a lot.
Oh.
Can I just say that I really hate camera shake in any type of movie. Like I hate that it's been over abused in like a lot of action movies as well, because it's like, you know, you don't get a good focus of what the fuck is going on during the scene. Like,
I got a better topic. How about we talk about that CGI in horror movies?
no.
Okay. Now, before we start talking about CGI and bad CGI in horror movies, I want to say, at least with my favorite kill, it would actually have to be. I know this movie gets shat on a lot and for a good reason, but in Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers, my favorite kill, to be honest, in that movie was the dad when he got killed, because I was actually fucking rooting, huh?
Well, you mean in the theatrical cut?
Well, in the theatrical and the producer's cut, the dad got killed.
Yeah,
but
the theatrical
second
cut
one
adds more gore.
The theatrical cut. Well, the theatrical cut was him getting electrocuted and his head exploding, which was my favorite because, to be honest, the douchebag deserved it. He was a douche, so that was why it was my favorite kill. Now, for least favorite kill, I actually can't think of any.
You know what? I just forgot about my least favorite kills. Probably the Chucky movies.
The best kill ever is when Jason punched off that black dude's head.
Oh, you mean from Part 8?
That was hilarious. It went flying like a fucking football, dude.
Is that gonna be you in the future, Ren? You fight a serial
I'm
killer?
not fighting that dude that could take like 5,000 punches. Hell no.
But he's
Well, if he
undead.
had kept punching him a few more times, he would have fell off the roof.
You know what's really dumb about that scene is he kept punching him in the mask. I'm like, just stop. Kick him in the nuts or something.
I mean, you ever
He's
remember?
undead. He won't feel that.
Ren, you ever remember that movie They Live, where they have like a fight scene for 5 minutes?
Oh, yeah, that's the movie where the guy sees the aliens right with glasses?
Yep, the one that was taking inspiration from. Well, it made some references to Duke Nukem with the bubble.
Here to shoot a bubble gum.
Wasn't that movie first and Duke Nukem took from it?
Something like that. It was one or the other. They took inspiration from each other or something.
Yeah,
like that.
They Live came out in '88.
But
All right.
that movie scene was great because you just have like two dudes who like are in the middle of a fucking city alleyway beating the living shit out of each other over some glasses.
Every time I see that scene, it's always funny, especially when he breaks the back of his the back window of his car. He's like, "I'm sorry, man. Fuck." But yeah, that CGI in horror movies. Why do people do this? Doesn't look real. It's not good. Just stick to practical, please. Because I feel this ruins a lot of horror movies.
Savini.
I love when horror movies actually use practical effects.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really did not like about the Thing remake.
See, the funny thing about
the
that,
Thing
and I'm glad
remake
you brought that up, is that that was not supposed to use CGI effects. But
Yeah,
studio interference is the reason
interference.
why that happened. They did.
The
I know that the
Mongolian-
studio that was hired originally to make the practical effects for the prequel was ended up making like a sort of spiritual successor. I forget the name of the movie for whatever reason, but it had a similar premise, and they did end up using the practical effects they were not able to use on set for the Thing. I was gonna say too, a lot of like those old John Carpenter movies, I really love the practical effects in those, like in The Mouth of Madness and also in Prince of Darkness.
I love John's work. I loved. Now I know this film kind of gets shat on because it's not exactly like how the book was, but I did like John's take on it. It was John Carpenter's Vampires. I did
That was
like
actually
that.
an alright movie.
I did like James Woods in that, especially the when he was when he was like beating up the priest and everything like that. The father. I'll always fucking love that scene. But my favorite scene from Vampires though was the hotel slaughter scene. That'll always be my favorite. The fact that it was just fading in and out of people dying. James Woods' character, his face right there, watching everything like horrified because this never happened before, and this is the first time. I just love that, especially his reaction. I don't know why. It's just a personal favorite of mine. Besides, The Thing and Halloween. But to be honest, Halloween will always be my number one favorite movie from John, besides The Thing.
Oh, in terms of other vampire films, another good one is From Dusk Till Dawn.
Twilight?
Fuck no.
From Dusk Till Dawn, when they're the first half of the movie kind of plays out like a
I need to see
normal
that,
gangster
actually.
movie, and then it turns into a vampire film.
It's like at first you think, oh, Quentin Tarantino is in this movie. Looks like it's gonna be like Reservoir Dogs. Nope, it turns out to be this.
We need more movies like that, to be honest. Like, I like when there's a genre shift from obvious crime drama to full out fucking vampires slaughtering people.
Yeah, I need to see From Dusk Till Dawn, to be honest. I heard it's really good. I've seen clips of it. It looks pretty hilarious. So I don't know. I want to give it a shot.
See, I'm glad you brought that up, Ren, because The Descent, which is a movie that I was talking about earlier in this podcast, it starts out as just a regular exploration film up until the point where they get locked in the cave and it becomes a claustrophobia film.
Yep.
Well, yeah, and then they start getting chased by mutants.
Yep.
That's another genre that
And
is.
don't watch the sequel. It does.
Well,
doesn't
I
have-
have
reason
heard
I
of
really
it.
don't like the reason why I really don't like the sequel is because it retcons the ending, which kind of ruins it for me.
Well, yeah, pretty much. That's why we don't talk about the sequel. It doesn't exist.
But yeah, I think like the original ending's like on all versions except maybe the DVD one. It's what it showed in the UK version. It's just that they changed it for when it came out in the US.
Mm-hmm.
I think From what I remember, it depends on the cut of the movie. Although I believe on DVD it includes both. So I'm not exactly sure on the exact details, but yeah, there are two different endings. And I know that's kind of debated upon which ending is better, but I actually like both endings. So.
Oh, another one I guess I wanted to touch on was the sort of like disaster like movie like Final Destination where people are just fucking dying from, death. I thought the first two movies were good, and a lot of people said 5 was good too.
Actually, there was a marathon of those movies on TV.
The worst one was
on
the
AMC.
fourth one.
Oh, the one that was in 3D.
Was it?
Yeah, I saw some. Yeah, the third one was in 3D.
That one.
Well, that was the fourth one.
That was the worst one, fam.
I think it's just called.
I like the idea of it, but I feel like it's also one of those movies where if you just keep doing the same thing, it just keeps getting. It really just gets old after a while, in my opinion.
It's like they didn't even try.
That's true.
Yeah.
If they decided, you know what, we're just gonna say fuck it and end on 5, I would be fine with this.
I saw. I think it was the beginning of. I think it was the Final Destination, and like I remember I saw the beginning of it, and the beginning is basically just they're at a racetrack, and then the way they die is a car crashes and causes this crazy chain reaction of all these other cars crashing and like flying into the audience and just destroying the stadium, and everybody just dies, and I'm like, this just seems. I don't even know what to say about this. Like, and then one person dies because a tire, like they're outside the stadium, right? And this one woman dies because a tire goes flying over the stadium wall, and then like, of course, conveniently like lands right on her, like while she's out in the parking lot.
Dude,
and she dies from that.
The funniest death ever has to be from the third one with the dude working out and the waist just sort of crushes his head in a cartoony effect. And he's like screaming to it, like, what the fuck?
The one that you guys were
people were retarded in that movie too. A guy plugs up like a fucking they have like I guess like a radio, like in that same scene they got like a radio sitting like on a bench and like some water spilled out or something, and it's like about you think somebody's gonna get electrocuted, but it's kind of like I guess it's like a fake out or something, because then they show the guy lifting weights and he just gets his head cut off, whatever happens to him.
The one where you guys were kind of roasting with the car crash scene, didn't they also have one death where like somebody was like mowing like the grass or whatever, and like a rock gets caught in the fucking like lawnmower and then launches itself through a fucking window and into like this chick's head,
a lady.
like,
yeah,
and I'm sorry, like if you've ever cut grass with the lawnmower, like that's not how that shit works.
Basically, the idea, like in the Final Destination movies, like the idea is everything and anything and everything is a weapon of like they can kill multiple people. Like it doesn't matter what it is.
Now, the only way I could actually see any of this like happening is if death can do all this like impossible shit, but even then that's a cop out.
I mean, there's a certain amount of suspension of disbelief when it comes to movies like that, and it's like you can only just suspend your disbelief so much when you watch these movies, and to the point where it's like you're just laughing at it, like you don't even, it's not scary, it's just funny.
It kind of reminds me how actually there was an episode of Supernatural where they did something like this with Final Destination. The first time I saw it, I was like, are they trying to make fun of Final Destination? I'm getting Final Destination vibes from this.
I will say the most realistic ones, like the gymnast in Final Destination 5, I thought that was like just the realistic one where people are falling and shit and they turn into like mulch. I just love that kill so much.
Yeah, you think with like the first film, people became afraid of going on planes, like with Jaws, like with people becoming afraid of going in the water.
Shit, that shark will keep me out of the water for eternity. Fuck that.
Well, shit, trust me. If all of a sudden someone was saying, you know, the plane's gonna crash, and he looked genuine, I'm taking my happy ass out.
But
Of course, then death might come after you.
yeah. But does anyone else have any closing topics before we sign out?
Well, Ren, what about what you and I talked about a couple days ago? How it seems like horror movies from the past is now like has been changing over the course of the years. As the years go by, it seems like horror movies are changing, sometimes for the best, but other times for the worst.
When they reinvent horror movies and they make them modernized, but also they keep elements from the older films. Like I said, I just seen Halloween 2018. I thought that was a nice mix of old along with adding like a lot of new things as well to like the core formula, and making all these multiple characters and giving them like an arc before they finally get like fucking destroyed.
And without like, and also without like changing what made the character.
Because it made, I mean, even though I thought Laurie was like super prepared for that shit, it made sense for the character going forward. So I appreciate that movie a lot over the dumbass sequels that we got.
I was gonna mention too, going off that, I feel like there has also been this kind of wave of I don't know if I'd say just horror movies, but like I feel like movies in general are like a lot of them like I guess it's just this nostalgia for like 80s movies and stuff. They want to go back to, I've seen it with more horror movies, I think, though, where like they want to go back to kind of the 80s style of like making horror movies. I've seen it with movies like It Follows, another movie I've seen recently with Nick Cage on Mandy, that kind of felt like it was trying to be like kind of this cheesy 80s horror type movie.
There was also
my Nicholas Trigger.
Yeah.
There was Hobgoblins 2, which was made as a sequel to the original.
And of course we have shows like Stranger Things. We got the movie I mentioned before, The Void. It was like an homage to Carpenter and some of the movies he made. And obviously with that we have all like the synth soundtracks as well. Obviously it feels like a lot of them are trying to do that too, which I don't have a problem with. I think I like those soundtracks, but it definitely feels like there's a lot of movies and TV shows, mainly like horror oriented ones, that are trying to I guess harken back to the 80s and stuff, like instead of like, in a weird way, instead of like going forward with I guess kind of coming up with new stuff with horror movies, where a lot of some of these directors are kind of like are being nostalgic for like the 80s and trying to go back to that. But maybe not necessarily. That doesn't always mean that they're going back to like tired old ideas, but they maybe want to bring some modern concepts into those movies, but put it in like an 80s setting, or give it like an 80s aesthetic or something like that.
I think that's the best way to go, because it brings out that was the best quality of horror movies back then, when they were like old and people were getting into them like for the first time back then. So I think bringing that to this age is the best way to combine a horror film, as opposed to like just making a pretty baseless remake if they decide to go down that route. It's pretty much a cash grab if they decide to make those modernized remakes.
I would also say
especially
like, with horror movies, because like how like those old 80s movies, they would also have it where the protagonist was like tired of dealing with the like monster shit and they decided to fight back.
Yeah,
like more shit like that, because I noticed with a lot of more like modern horror movies, they just have it where like, oh well, the protagonist is still fucked up and they're still gonna die, and they're just a bunch of fucking idiots that you don't really care if they live or die at that point.
Yeah.
So
yeah. See, the thing that I really did enjoy about Halloween 2018 was the fact that, just like what you guys were saying, Ren and Chaos, it's like they balanced out the nostalgia also adding a mixture of new things. Is like they added new things to lure people into the new Halloween series. Like new people like saying, hey, you know, if you like this movie, you should definitely check out the previous ones, especially the first one, and then rewatch the movie. And then the nostalgic is for people who were brought up on, you know, Halloween. That's been there since the very first film, which I actually liked. So it's like, you know, hey, you know, people who like the old Halloween movies, hey, this movie is perfect for you. And the new people who don't know anything about Michael or anything like that, hey, this movie is really perfect for you too. I like that balance between nostalgic and new things.
Unknown
And
artist
also,
mentioned
yeah,
that the books are also being turned into, like, you know, shows and movies now, if they don't have any ideas to go back off of for like established horror movies. So I agree with that.
Well, they've been doing that with Stephen King books for the longest time now.
Yeah, but
Hey,
as we said, like, some of them have been like really up and down.
yeah.
unknown artist, you got
I know
anything to
with
say?
Oh, go ahead.
Like, for example, The Haunting of Hill House. I know that Netflix has been taking a lot of stories and horror-esque and like just all sorts of different genres and stuff. They've been revamping them and kind of bringing them into the light, I guess, because a lot of things kind of got ignored or kind of pushed to the side, or not many people were into it. And they've been kind of bringing light to a lot of things. So I think that was kind of interesting too, and seeing like their renditions of stuff. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen The Haunting of Hill House or anything of
I've
that
seen
sort.
it.
So I
Yeah.
don't know. I thought they did a really good job of that. It didn't quite follow the book by far. Obviously, it was their own take on it, but I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, I don't know much about the book, but yeah, the show was really good. The director, Mike Flanagan, is a lot of his stuff I've seen has been really good. He did Oculus. He's doing the new Doctor Sleep. He did Gerald's Game, which was another Stephen King adaptation that was really good too. So I've been pretty impressed with his stuff.
I never seen The Haunting of Hill House. How is it?
It's good.
It's really good, and it starts.
Yeah.
It's not one of those things that constantly like jump scare you either. It's really story oriented and
Oh, I like
based on
that.
like each character for every single episode too. So it's, I don't know, it's really story oriented, and it's not so much like, oh, here's this jump scare, here's this. It's really kind of like psychological, and it makes it more interesting, I guess.
Yeah, it does deal a lot with like the character drama, but there's also a lot of horror oriented stuff in it too. So it kind of balances it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other topics that I don't know if we've I'm sure there's plenty of other things we haven't talked about.
Did anyone give their thoughts of like how horror movies have changed from like how they used to be to like now? Because I mean, with me, I've seen a major change in how horror movies are nowadays. Because nowadays, like a perfect example is, you know, The Nun. Because The Nun, I heard it was like the story wasn't too bad, but there was so much an over reliance on cheap scares, like jump scares in particular. Just, you know, going back and forth
I think
with
people have been a
the
lot
jump
less
scares.
nowadays.
Because I hate jump scares. It has to be done right. That's why I liked it Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. The jump scares in those movies, they did not rely so much on the jump scares in it. There was a perfect balance between both films and the amount of jump scares used. Now I like movies like that. That's why I personally like, Friday the 13th. That's why I kind of like the old slasher films. They didn't rely so much on jump scares. They used, music to kind of like build everything up, make you go like, oh shit, he's watching them. Again, like when the scene where Linda and I forgot her. Oh no, I forgot her oh, Bob, that's his name. That's the name. When Linda and her boyfriend Bob went upstairs and was having sex, Michael went past the room, and you saw a shadow, and you heard, "Ding!" You just heard the instrument, and when I was a kid, that actually frightened me a little bit. Not gonna lie, it still gives me little chills. Just a little key, music in it. It's like no imagery, just music to make you scared. I don't know. I just prefer, sometimes I prefer, the older horror to the newer horror. It has to be done right. Because It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, those are the only ones that, that I actually pretty much like around this era, to be honest.
Yeah, same. Yeah, but it's like I said earlier. I think I like the idea that there are some directors who are trying to go back to that style of movie making from the 80s and who are also trying to incorporate some newer ideas into it. So I guess it kind of goes back to that. Yeah, I guess we can wrap things up, Ren, if you want to do the outros.
Alright, so since Dom had to go to work, I'm going to outro him. So you can find him on Twitter at BileDevil_Dom. You can find him on YouTube at BileDevilDom. I think he's going to finish up his RE5 review with Chaos, so he's working on that currently. So who can outro themselves next? I guess it could be Drill.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Drillvit777, and well, that's the only place I really am active on, for the most part.
What about you, Kaneki?
Hold on. You can find me on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, under the same name as Google Order. Oh, and Mixer as well, because fuck Twitch. And I really hope Blumhouse will get Friday the 13th.
I will say it would be interesting if they decide to have an approach like that.
Because I want to see how they do with that film instead of what we got from 2009. Although it's not a bad film, it's just it had the same feeling like the Child's Play one. But continue.
They are trying to swipe up all the horror franchises from what I noticed, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, before we continue, I forgot to bring this up. They should get Scream as well. Blumhouse.
That's if they ever want to bring Scream back, though. Has there any rumors?
No.
The thing
Please,
is,
let's keep the franchise dead.
Without Wes Craven, it's kind of hard to do a new one.
I really
leave it alone.
Yeah, I know.
They've been doing the TV show recently, though.
Hmm.
The TV show is shit.
It was an MTV show, though.
Alright, Chaos.
And it's shit.
Chaos, outro yourself.
You can find me on both YouTube and Twitter at Captain Chaos. You can also find me by that name, or you can find me by the name of Captain Chaos Art at DeviantArt. I upload some art there, and I'm currently working on a pretty big art project where I am basically painting all of the losers as well as Pennywise for It Chapter 2. I am nearly done with that, so hopefully I should be finished before Halloween. I definitely want to finish that up before Halloween and post that. But it's probably the biggest project I've done, and it's the most time-consuming project I've done. So, but it is coming along very well so far. So I'm excited to get that finished. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cryo, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter at Cryo Gaming. And that's a number 0, not O. Same with YouTube and Twitch, same thing. So yeah.
Alright, Unknown Artist, where can we find you, buddy?
YouTube, Twitch, The Unknown Artist, and then Twitter, Unknown Artist. I did want to say thank you guys for having me. I do apologize I didn't talk a whole ton, but you guys were having really good discussions. I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, that's cool, man. Is this your first podcast?
Oh, and I do some of my own actually, but no, I was having a lot of fun with you guys. It was really good listening in, honestly, and not talking so much for once, because you guys pretty much hit every single point that I was going to even bring up. So
That's all good, man. Like I said, you're always welcome to come back whenever you know, get time or you find something that's like interesting to talk about.
oh yeah, thank you.
No problem. And I guess you can find me on YouTube at Renegade Operative. You can find me on Twitch, you know, all these streaming services, Renegade Operative, Twitter, Ren Operative _. I don't know what I'm going to be doing particularly on my channel. I have to upload all the IES stuff, so that's gonna take me a bit to do. I just noticed that we got like 30 new subs, so I really appreciate all you people that's been following so far. I am working on everything. It's just gonna take a while to get all those movie commentaries up because something happened with my mic the last time, so I kind of got fucked. But I'm working on that right now. For my channel, I will be doing a review of Resident Evil 4, so look forward to that in the future. So we're going to close off this podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed while we were talking about our favorite horror movies and the elements of them, and hopefully you have a good night. See you later.
Later.
Full moon, motherfuckers.
Watch out for the werewolves and the Twitch thoughts.
I was thinking about